welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a close look at something that really shapes our lives in ways we might not even realize. This profound and, well, often tricky relationship between technology and how much we actually move.
Yeah, and we're doing that deep dive using a really insightful piece of research. It's a paper that sort of lays out this connection, charting the evolution of technology and physical inactivity, the good, the bad, and the way forward.
Right. So our goal here is to pull out the key ideas from this paper for you. We want to trace this whole story, how our, constant drive for easier lives through tech might have accidentally created a world where we barely move anymore, and what that means for our health right now. And then the really fascinating part, how that exact same technology might just be the crucial tool to help us get moving again.
And what struck me immediately reading this is this fundamental thread, Humans have always looked for ways for technology to make life less physically demanding, easier.
Right.
And that ancient drive, it's been incredibly successful for thousands of years. But it's brought us here to a modern world built on that success, facing some pretty unexpected health challenges because of it.
Okay, so let's start there with that historical view. What the paper calls the good. How technology genuinely made life easier, safer, and, well, longer too.
Exactly. The paper takes us way, way back, showing how it all began. The very first stone tools from Homo habilis millions of years ago, or Homo erectus controlling fire maybe 2 million years back.
These weren't just inventions.
No, they were technologies that made essential tasks less physically draining. They boosted efficiency, survival even.
Yeah, I can see that. Needing less brute strength for food or defense. Then you fast forward, and you get things like the wheel, carts, maybe 7,000 years ago.
Right, and suddenly, moving goods, moving people, it required way less physical effort than carrying everything yourself. It didn't just lighten the load, it completely changed trade, opened up new ways to get around.
And then came the Industrial Revolution, roughly, 1750s to early 1900s?
Yeah, around then. And this era, it brought machines into factories, steam power, trains, ships. The need for manual labor at work just plummeted. Physical effort was literally engineered out of so many jobs.
And after that, you had the electronics and telecommunications revolution post-1970s, bringing efficiency right into our homes.
Totally. Telephones meant less walking just to talk to someone. Washing machines, vacuums, computers, they all cut down on the physical movement that used to be part of just, daily chores.
And running parallel to all this, and maybe just as important, the paper talks about medical technology.
Ah, yes. Even Hippocrates, way back, was linking diet and physical activity to health.
But the real game changers, things like the smallpox vaccine around 1770, and then that explosion of medical inventions in the 20th century, diagnosis, treatment, managing illness.
The outcome was just massive, undeniable. Life expectancy increased dramatically. For literally thousands of years, it hovered around, 35, 40 years?
Yeah.
And now it's closer to 80.
So, looking at the good, the paper's argument is pretty clear. Technology absolutely delivered on its promise. It cut down the physical effort needed everywhere and helped us live much, much longer. Sounds like a total win, right?
It really does. And yet, this is where the paper pivots sharply into the bad. It highlights these profound, unintended consequences of all that ease and efficiency.
And the big one the paper points to seems to be this massive drop in what it calls incidental physical activity.
Exactly.
The movement that just used to be, baked into your day. Unavoidable, really.
Precisely. Think about what changed. Walking places, cycling, physically demanding jobs, doing laundry by hand, sweeping, gardening because you had to.
Right.
All these daily things that required physical effort, they got replaced by cars, desk jobs, washing machines, Roombas, delivery services.
And then came the internet. Mobile devices. The paper really zeroes in on this more recent shift, doesn't it?
It does. Their widespread use, especially how we use them in our free time, it's been directly linked to more sedentary behavior. You can see the correlation quite clearly in the data, linking more screen time to rising obesity rates. Kids and adults.
Which leads us to the major health crisis the paper talks about. This overall drop in activity, the surge in sitting around. It's tightly linked to the obesity epidemic.
Yeah, and the paper even uses this term you don't hear much, a syndemic, meaning it's not just one thing, but interacting epidemics. Obesity linked with low socioeconomic status, health inequities, they sort of feed off each other, making things worse.
And those numbers the paper cites for the U.S., they're really something. Prevalence of overweight and obesity basically doubled, from under 50% in the 60s to nearly 80% now.
Startling, isn't it? And the health problems that follow are immense. Much higher risk of diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, mental health issues, a whole range of other chronic conditions.
And the paper points out it's a bit of a cycle, right? Inactivity can cause obesity, but obesity also makes it harder to be active. It's a consequence, too.
It's a vicious cycle, absolutely. And it's particularly worrying for middle-aged and older adults. High inactivity puts them at serious risk for losing muscle mass and strength, that's sarcopenia.
Which leads to falls.
Falls, fractures, yeah.
Yeah.
Also cognitive decline, more hospitalizations.
So here's the paradox, the disconnect. We're living much longer, thanks to amazing medical tech. But often, those extra years are spent dealing with chronic illness or disability. It impacts your ability to function, your independence, your quality of life. It really makes you think about that Lincoln quote the paper mentions, about adding life to your years, not just years to your life.
It's a really powerful point. And it stands in contrast to big goals like the UN's Sustainable Development Goal #3, aiming for health and well-being for everyone. We have the tech for longevity, but our lifestyle is kind of undermining the quality of that longer life.
And here's another thing that really jumped out from the paper. We know physical activity is incredibly beneficial for everything: function, physical health, brain health, mental well-being. There are clear guidelines, like that 150 minutes a week everyone agrees on for major benefits. Right. But most people just aren't doing it. The paper notes, back in 2016, less than 30% of U.S. adults and only about 20% of adolescents were hitting those targets.
And this is the crucial insight, I think. Just knowing exercise is good for you, it's not enough. The paper makes it super clear. Inactivity isn't just about ignorance. It's tangled up in this complex web: demographics, health status, social factors, our environment, economics.
So just telling people move more isn't cutting it.
No. That rational educational message, it just isn't powerful enough to drive the kind of population-level change we need. Not against the forces making inactivity so easy and, frankly, appealing.
Which brings us to the way forward. And this is where it gets really interesting, I think. If technology kind of engineered inactivity into our lives, could it be the tool we use to engineer it back out? Or rather, engineer activity in? How do you actually motivate people to change these deep habits, to stick with activity, when screens and sitting are so available and, well, often designed to be really enjoyable?
Yeah, the paper gets into behavior change theory here, specifically something called the affective reflective theory, or RT.
Okay.
This theory suggests that our immediate emotional reaction, that gut feeling about something, is a much stronger driver of what we do than just our logical thoughts or plans.
So, like, when you think about going for a run,
Yeah.
your instant feeling, positive or negative, that's the first hurdle.
Pretty much. It kind of kicks off whether you lean towards doing it or avoiding it. Then your final decision is this balance between how much enjoyment you think you'll get from the activity versus how much enjoyment or comfort you're getting right now, often sitting with your tech.
But there's a rational part too, thinking about goals.
Yes, there's a controlled, reflective evaluation, thinking about your needs, your values, your goals. But that initial affective emotional response, it's incredibly powerful.
And here's the challenge, right? Based on that theory, current tech, apps, the internet, they are masterful at triggering positive feelings. Algorithms, likes, notifications, endless scrolling.
They're designed for enjoyment, engagement, even hitting those dopamine pathways. It makes sedentary leisure highly rewarding, maybe even addictive sometimes. And that enjoyment of inactivity is a really tough competitor for exercise to beat in that internal tug of war.
So the central, really exciting question the paper asks is, knowing all this, can we actually repurpose the very tech that helped reduce our activity levels to boost them instead?
And based on our key, the answer seems to be yes, if that technology can somehow create a stronger feeling of perceived enjoyment for being active.
Okay, so what does the evidence look like? What's emerging?
Well, the paper looks at a few things. One of the earliest examples is wearable activity trackers. You know, basic pedometers evolving into sophisticated fitness bands, smartwatches, tracking steps, heart rate, sleep, everything.
And do they work?
Well, a big review mentioned did find they showed promise. Increased physical activity, better mobility, especially in older adults, but mostly in the short term.
The short-term caveat.
Yeah. Overall, they seem okay for short-term boosts in steps, maybe small reductions in BMI. But the big question, the impact on sustained long-term behavior change, that still needs more study.
What makes people stick with them then?
Good question. A qualitative study they cited pointed to a few things. People seeing future value in the data, engaging with it when they have a moment, feeling empowered by the info, and crucially, setting their own goals.
Which ties back to that reflective part of the RT model you mentioned, setting goals.
Exactly. But now, let's talk about where the enjoyment piece really comes into play. Exergaming and virtual reality VR. The paper sees this as a huge opportunity, integrating activity into platforms that are already designed around fun.
So if old tech hooked us with pleasure while sitting,
Maybe the way forward is tech that promotes activity through pleasure. Gamifying exercise with active video games, it's already showing some positive signs in studies. Things like improvements in cholesterol, body fat, and importantly, increased enjoyment and feeling more capable, that self-efficacy.
interesting.
Yeah, one study even found better glucose management with supervised exercise games compared to just standard exercise.
And VR takes that even further.
Potentially, yes. It offers these immersive, really novel ways to make exercise fun, engaging. It's still pretty early days research-wise, but initial studies hint at benefits for both physical and psychological well-being.
So the practical idea here is pretty compelling. If you make exercise more enjoyable using tech, maybe that's the key to getting more people to actually do it and stick with it.
Exactly. Which could lead directly to better health outcomes, better quality of life. Contributing to that UN goal we talked about, maybe the focus shouldn't just be cutting screen time, but finding ways to make screen time actually require or encourage movement.
We kind of see hints of this already, right? Like AR games on phones, VR fitness apps, using gamification.
We do. Think Pokemon Go, but maybe more targeted towards structured exercise. But again, the paper is cautious. These studies are often short-term. The long-term population-level impact, still an unknown.
What about other ways tech could nudge us?
Well, another interesting idea is repurposing those engagement prompts. You know, the alerts, the notifications that current tech uses to pull you in, keep you sedentary.
Yeah.
They could just as easily be designed to prompt you to get up, stretch, take a quick walk break, using the same mechanisms for a different goal.
But for this to really scale up, the paper argues for a pretty fundamental shift, right?
Yeah.
Within the tech industry itself.
Definitely. Success metrics can't just be about eyeballs and time spent on an app that quantitative engagement. They need to start including measures of social benefit, public health outcomes.
Which would probably mean, what? Health experts working with tech designers?
That seems essential. Public health expertise embedded right into the tech development teams.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Bring together the key takeaways from this deep dive.
All right. We've traced technology's historical path, how it succeeded in making life easier and longer.
But doing that created this huge unintended consequence. Widespread physical inactivity, leading to health crises like the obesity syndemic.
And we've highlighted the core challenge. Today's tech often reinforces being sedentary, and a major barrier to exercise is that it's often perceived as less enjoyable than those sedentary options.
But, and this is the hopeful part, the paper shows real potential in emerging tech, especially things that gamify activity or embed it into enjoyable experiences. That seems like a viable path for innovation.
Yeah, we looked at the evidence for current stuff like trackers, apps, online programs. They show some short-term effectiveness. And phone-based tech seems particularly promising just because it's so accessible.
And central to making any of this work long-term seems to be genuine collaboration. Tech and health need to work together.
Absolutely.
So the paper kind of leaves us with this thought. The current path, with inactivity rising alongside tech use, it is concerning, no doubt. But with tech always advancing and our understanding of behavior change getting better, there's this unique window, maybe.
Yeah.
An opportunity to completely rethink and redesign how physical activity and technology interact for a healthier future.
Yeah, this deep dive really hits home how much technology has shaped us. Incredible benefits, yes, but also serious challenges by making it so easy to be still. But the truly hopeful piece is that potential, the idea that the same tools could actually be key to helping us move more and live better lives.
Understanding that whole evolution and where we could potentially go feels pretty vital for you listening, for all of us, personally and as a society.
And maybe here's that final thought to chew on, drawing from the core of the paper. If technology's success, historically, was measured by how efficiently it kept us engaged, often sitting down, what if its ultimate success in the future isn't just about engagement, but about how effectively it gets us active? What would that actually look like in the tech you use every single day?
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.